Back when I was a lad in the 1970s and early 80s in the little town of Lochmaben in Scotland where I grew up, if you had a Mercedes-Benz, you were, how do I put this politely, you were quite well off. I mean, the local doctor had one, the solicitor had one, the man that owned the big double glazing company, he had one. Otherwise, normal people drove around in things like Escorts and Astras and Sierras and Montegos. Yet Mercedes-Benz sells a lot of cars these days. In fact, the A-Class, their small 5-door hatchback, way outsells the Ford Focus and is a regular in the top 10 sales chart in the UK. And get your head around this, in the UK year to date, 2022, Mercedes-Benz has sold 3 times more cars than Renault. It has sold more cars than Peugeot and Citroen combined, and it's even registered more cars than Vauxhall. Now, it's not just Mercedes-Benz that are guilty of this. Audi, BMW, both of those companies individually have sold more cars in the UK than Toyota. So it's fair to say that the sort of prestige and premium brands are really no longer prestige and premium in some respects. They're kind of normal and volume players. So what do you do if you kind of want something that stands out and is a bit premium? Well, if you do want to stand out from the new normal, there is an answer, and it comes in the shape of this, as we shall now show you. So, without further ado, welcome to the Mercedes-Benz EQA 250, welcome to the brand new Genesis GV60, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get on to this week's twin test between the Mercedes-Benz EQA and the Genesis GV60, it is of course that time when I'm going to ask you to make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Once you've done that, press the bell button down below so you can be notified when our next video goes live. Once you've watched the video, if you like it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave us some comments, good or bad. Let us know how we're doing. So, our 2 protagonists this week, what do we have here? Well, we have 2 cars in probably one of the most hotly contested sectors in the marketplace, that sort of £50,000 bracket compact SUV crossover style. Now, whilst £50,000 is hardly chump change, the EV buyer does have a huge amount of choice in this market sector, with players such as, well, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Volkswagen Group and many, many more, all vying for your cash. The EQA, now we've driven the EQA before on the channel and tested it, and it is available with a piston engine equivalent, so the GLA. But what Mercedes-Benz are very, very good at doing with the EQ range is electrifying those piston engine cars, and it does drive particularly well. In fact, I'd say of all the Mercedes-Benz EQ range, the EQ is a bit of an unsung hero, and I really like this car. But it's not going to have an easy time of it because, as I say, now we've got the Genesis GV60. Now, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last few years, you may not know who Genesis is. It is, well, it's Hyundai. They've basically got a sort of premium brand going now. So it's spun from cars such as the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6, Hyundai's sister brand, Kia. So it uses the eGMP platform, and it's Genesis' first dedicated all-electric car. In other words, you don't get the GV60 with a piston engine equivalent. But here's the question. It's a fairly unknown brand, whereas Mercedes-Benz obviously is a known quantity. So where are you better off putting your money, and does this newcomer make a much more premium car than Mercedes-Benz? Time to put them to the test and find out. Now, as I say, we've road tested the EQA before, but it's always worth going back over a few things with it. And in terms of its styling, well, some people are going to say it's a bit bland looking. I think it's a bit more restrained. Let's just say that. I don't mind it. I think it's quite a nice looking car. I particularly like it in white, if I'm being completely honest. And it feels like it's got really, really big sidewalls on these tyres. I mean, these are 18-inch alloys. This is an AMG line car, so it sits above the Sport in the range. And you can tell that because you get the twin chrome flashes across the grille that flank obviously the big 3-pointed star. You get standard LED headlamps as well, which are very, very good. But yeah, you can tell that it is, as I say, the EQ version of the GLA, because obviously the grille is blanked off by this kind of big bit of plastic here. And there's a bit of kind of, you know, there's no kind of fake vents per se, but then obviously you've got this little bit that leads in there and comes out there to put airflow across these kind of aerodynamic alloy wheels. You get nice kind of strakes down the bonnet, and obviously your centerised badge there. But yeah, it doesn't stand out. It doesn't make you look back and go, wow, which is something that the Genesis does achieve, but we'll get on to obviously that in a second. You work your way down the side, and what have you got? Well, you've got your EQA badge kind of stuck on there. Say this has got the 18-inch kind of 5-spoke alloy wheels, but there's nothing really to kind of offend, but there's nothing really to excite either. You get the kind of chrome flash down at the bottom there, and a bit of chrome obviously around the window line as well, and your standard fit roof rails. But it's kind of, as I say, a kind of typical kind of restrained Mercedes-Benz look. And of course at the back, well, it's a similar story. You've got your obligatory light bar that goes across the rear, like seems to be the way with all EVs these days. Decent sort of size roof spoiler, integrated third brake light, rear wiper, thank you Mercedes. Big 3-pointed star, which doubles also as the boot release and the reversing camera. So when you stick the car in reverse, this flips out, and it's quite noisy as well when you hear it clunk out, and it gives you an image from the back, which isn't brilliant, but we'll get onto that later. Yeah, of course you've got your badge in there, a wee chrome kind of strip across the boot plinth, black plastic kind of bumpers there for practicality reasons. But yeah, see, not exactly exciting. Certainly not as exciting looking as the GV60. Because if you want excitement in styling, look no further. Now, this is the work of a man called Luc Donkervalk, who is Genesis chief styler, and you will be familiar with some of his work. The Lamborghini Murcielago, the original Audi A2, Audi's LMP1 car. He designed all of those as well, and he's been charged with making Genesis really stand out in the marketplace, and I think he's achieved that unbelievably well. Now, we have done a video with the GV60 before, but it was a sneak peek in a studio with a pre-production car. We weren't allowed to drive it, whereas now this is now fully productionised. You can go to Genesis and buy this car. But confession time, Genesis were going to send me a single motor premium model. They've ended up sending me a dual motor all-wheel drive performance model. So we won't focus too much on certain elements of it, but to all intents and purposes, this is how the GV60 looks, irrespective of model. There'll be different alloy wheels available, but that's it. And how does it look? Well, I think it looks unbelievably cool. In fact, my wife looked at it and said it looks evil. She really liked it. And it turns quite a few heads, this, helped actually by this kind of matte finish paint on this car. I don't normally like these matte finishes, but I think it just suits the GV60 really well. Genesis have got this kind of twin light kind of trademark going on, so you've got all the individual little LEDs in there, daytime running lights and full headlights in there. There's the crest grille is right down at the bottom there, so there is cooling at the bottom. There's a tiny little bit of filled in fakery going around there, but it's not too bad. But I like this kind of contrasting trim that you get round it, and this kind of clamshell bonnet. I mean, the wheel arch sits slightly inward to this panel here, and it's a really interesting piece of design. It really draws your eye to it. And it's the same down here along the side, where it just kind of goes in a little bit. And of course, because that comes up here, what that does is it kind of pinches the bodywork in just to make it look less visually bulky. But it's a good looking car, this. You get the flush door handles on it. As I say, a nice set of wheels like this one really do set it off. No roof rails though, like you get on the EQA. So again, if you're carrying loads, you're going to have to really think about how you get roof bars onto that. But then this bit here, this chrome flash that comes up here in this kind of lightning bolt, and that's designed to make you realise that it is an electric car. Not sure about that myself, but it's quite a nice piece of trim design if I'm honest with you. But yeah, good looking car this. And of course, around the back, well, it's just as exciting as everywhere else on it here. You get this, it's difficult to see here, but you get this little kind of beak there, if you like, this little kind of bit of the spoiler that dips down for your reverse camera there. The image is much better than you get in the Mercedes-Benz. Really kind of truncated rear window going into this spoiler. And this is the only downside with the GV60 design. It does look incredible, but it splits the window. So when you're inside and you're looking back, it's not as ideal. Your rearward visibility, and of course my usual bugbear, no rear wiper on the car. Anyway, mirroring the front, you get your twin lamp design as well, which is again it's like a Genesis trademark. All the other cars have got the same kind of twin lights at the rear, and then you get this nice kind of lettering just across the broad beam of the car with the badge there, the GV60 badge there, and again this kind of two-tone finish that you get on it. Handle integrated at the top of the bumper there to get the boot open as well. But yeah, it's an exciting look. This is an exciting looking car, whereas the Mercedes, I say, is a little bit more restrained. So it kind of really depends obviously on what you want. If you want to kind of blend in and be less kind of obvious, then obviously the Mercedes-Benz is probably going to be a bit of a winner for you. But if you want to make a bit of a statement and have an exciting looking car, this is probably going to be high on your list. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. Now when it comes to practicality, it's the Genesis that leads the way with 432 litres of boot space, as opposed to the EQA's, well, quite small 340 litres. I mean, that's actually smaller than the boot of the Lexus UX300E, which is, well, tiny, to be honest with you. And of course the other downside you have with the Mercedes is because it is a sort of converted piston engine car, there's no dedicated storage for cables, so they just come in these bags, which obviously then have to be kept in the boot unless you leave them at home. But don't think the Genesis has it all its own way, because neither car will actually take all 4 of our AutoEV suitcases. They'll take a combination of them. So for instance, and you could get sort of like this one in there, and then maybe the 2 cabin bags sliding in that way. And then you get space extra for kind of rucksacks in there. But as I say, these bags of cables in this one, they kind of do, well, they just kind of get in the way. And because of the parcel shelves, you can't have the suitcases that way, so you'd have to take those out to get them in. So neither car really is brilliantly practical. They're all right, as I say, but it's certainly the Genesis that has the more space. Now obviously they've got the split folding rear seats, 60-40 in the Genesis and 40-20-40 in the EQA. But the Genesis does at least have dedicated cable storage, which is underneath the floor of the boot. So once you take your luggage out, you do have a bit of space in there for all your cable bags and things. Plus, because it's on that EGMP platform, there's some small storage at the front. Now, this is a dual motor car, as I explained. This wasn't the car I was supposed to have, but you do have a small amount of storage in there. It's about 24 litres on a dual motor car, but it doubles up to over 50 litres on a single motor car, which would be enough. Certainly if you had more cables or a small rucksack, you could get it in the front, certainly. But you've nothing under the bonnet of the EQA in terms of storage. And it's also hampers the rear seat accommodation as well, and the reason being is you kind of feel the floors pushed up a little bit, so you've got this really awkward way of sitting where you've got, see, your feet feel like they're really pushed up. You sit in this kind of weird kind of angle, so it's not comfortable for someone sort of like even my height at 5'7", 5'8". I've got plenty of leg room, in fairness, you know, there's enough leg room here, and headroom's good as well. It's fine in terms of that, but yeah, you just kind of don't feel like the rear seat accommodation is as good as it could be because the batteries, as I say, have kind of pushed the floor up. And what else have we got? Well, we've got a USB-C port down there, a couple of face vents, a little bit of tiny bit of storage there, and some mat pockets there, and then some door bins, which are all right. There's a reasonable amount. The ISOFIX points are nice and easy to get to, so if you're putting child seats in, that's a nice and easy kind of fit straight away. And then obviously you've got the flip down armrest with the cup holders in at the end, so you don't have the kind of exposed bits there. But yeah, it's just a bit more compromised in the EQA than it is in something like the Genesis, which we'll now see. So yeah, accommodation's much better in terms of rear seat space when it comes to the Genesis. You don't have that feeling of the floor being kind of pushed up. It's a little bit tight, if I'm honest with you, in footroom. I can't really get my feet underneath my driver's seat, but you know, I suppose it might just be where I have my driving position. But you do have a flat floor in the Genesis because obviously it is a dedicated EV platform. As I say, it's that EGMP platform. Now the trim in this car has the Napa leather because I say it's the sport model the performance model that we've been sent. So this isn't the standard kind of trim in here. You do get different trim levels obviously with the car, and as I say, it was supposed to be a slightly lower trim level that we had, but there we go. What have we got in terms of storage? Well, good actually. You've got a nice kind of big storage bin there, which is at the back of the centre console. You get 2 USB ports there. You've got these really nice bottle holders in the door, and you do have a small door bin as well, so that's good. And then obviously you've got the kind of rigid mat pockets on the back. You've also got the flip down armrest, which has another couple of cup holders in there as well. So yeah, in terms of rear accommodation, it is the Genesis that takes the prize here. Headroom's good, even though you've got that kind of real kind of coupe-like styling, and you get a couple of nice little touches like the metal coat hooks here and the high level face vents there and some grab handles up there. But yeah, in terms of accommodation, it's the Genesis that takes the prize. Now things get a bit better for the EQA when you jump up front, because this is a really nice driving environment, if I'm being honest with you. Mercedes have managed to kind of blend their kind of modern tech of dash with the more traditional style of buttons and fascia down here, a bit better than BMW have done on the i4. It feels a bit, my colleague Charlie felt with the i4 it was a bit mismatched, whereas in here I think it feels a little bit better. What have you got? Well, you've basically got two 10-inch landscape displays joined together on top that sit on the dashboard. Your right-hand display obviously does all your driver information systems, so your dials, you know, where your transmission, how much range you've got left, time, outside temperature and that. And you can configure this, so you can set it up exactly how you want it. You can change what the view that you have is. You can go into, you know, sort of like a full screen display, you know, you can change all the dials and sort of like the style of them. That's really nice, and I really like that. And then you move across to the left hand side and you've got the infotainment system, which is controlled either via the touchscreen, which you can just do via here, which is slick and really nice, it's really easy to sort of like use, or you use this trackpad down here, which is a bit like the Lexus UX300E, but so much better. It's just slicker, and you also get a little bit of haptic feedback on it as well, which is really nice. And you get this pad to rest the heel of your hand on while you're using it. You've also got the shortcut buttons around it, so you want to jump straight to sort of like say telephone or media or your navigation, and then you can just go straight there without going through the screens again, so that's good. Or you control it through the voice activation, which is done via the button on the steering wheel. So really slick, really nice way of doing it, and it all works really, really well. You've also got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in the vehicle as standard. And it's quite well equipped. I mean, it's not got things like electric seats and things like that. I mean, it's got heated seats on this model. But just talking of the seats, although they're not electric, there is a great range of adjustment on them. And the driving position is really nice. So you've got tilt adjustment, you've got height, you can extend the squab. The steering wheel will adjust for reach and rake. So there's always a very easy, nice driving position to get with the car. The wheel itself is nice. It's pleasingly round, apart from a slightly kind of flattened off bottom. It's a nice kind of girth. It feels good to hold, and there's just enough controls on it for you. So you've got things like your media and Bluetooth on the left here, and cruise control, and as I say, your screen kind of buttons on the right. There's two paddles behind the steering wheel which will adjust the brake regeneration. We'll see that obviously when we drive it. And then your column stocks, you've got your usual kind of one stock that Mercedes-Benz have always been renowned for, with the wipers and the lights on this one. And then the second one here is actually the transmission lever as well, so that's nice and up out the way there. Buttons down by my right knee are things like lights, electronic park brake, fog lights, and then obviously you've got your usual kind of door controls for windows and mirrors on the door itself. Nice that you've got physical heating and ventilation controls too, and they work really, really well. So temperature at either side, you've got a dual zone climate control system, and then obviously your automatic climate fan speed or maximum defrost there. Storage is good. You've got a little tray in here. It's not wireless charging, but it takes your mobile. That fits in there quite neatly. And I say there's a USB-C port in there. Two decent sized cup holders there, which will take a big size kind of water bottle. And then in here, you've also got more storage and more connectivity for your phone for the infotainment system. There's a reasonable sized glove box too, which is good, and that fits in there for your handbooks. And door bins are a nice size too, and they've also got bottle holders, and they're rubber lined at the bottom so things don't rattle around. The materials are very nice as well. So you've got this kind of Alcantara in the centre of the seats with this Artico man-made leather on the outside, which I quite like. I'm not so keen on the colours. It's a bit dark in here. I'd like maybe to have a kind of lighter colour. This kind of black with red stitching is a bit kind of passé, I think. But anyway, it's maybe just my taste. The rest of the cabin materials are good. I mean, even this kind of silver kind of inlay, it's nice. It's actually quite decent. The vents are a bit plasticky, but they've got quite a nice kind of action to them. The only thing I'm not so keen on is this kind of, there's a lot of this kind of piano black kind of plastic used, which just gets dusty and covered in fingerprints in my view, but there you go. The rest of it is really, really well built, however, and I can't fault it. And if you're coming from another Mercedes-Benz, an older Mercedes-Benz, this won't frighten you at all. A lot of the stuff in here is going to be familiar to you, and it works in the same way, and it works really, really well. So again, a little bit like the exterior of the car, there's nothing here to really scare you away, but it's just nice. There's just enough tech in here to get on with. But if you want avant-garde, then let's take a look at the Genesis. Yes, well, what more can we say about this? Well, we did look at the interior on our sneak peek video, but it is of course worth going through it again. And my usual caveat comes in. Remember, I said this is the performance model, so this car has the Napa leather seat package. So what you see here isn't entirely what you're getting in the premium model that we're actually comparing the two cars with. But there are some options available, but I'll talk through that in a second. But essentially, the design is what you have. There's no difference in terms of what you're visually looking at. It's just obviously you've got the, say the Napa leather option in this car. So what are you looking at? Well, you're looking at really a phenomenal interior, I think. Hyundai and Kia, and obviously now Genesis, they're really stepping the game up in terms of this. And in terms of technology, there's a huge amount on the car. Now, like the Mercedes, you've got these sort of twin screens, which are then mounted in one in a landscape format here. 12.3 inch either side. You've got this one in front of the driver, and then obviously the infotainment screen across here. So basically what you have, again, like the Mercedes, it is configurable. You can just change your view of what you're actually seeing by going through the areas of the dashboard here, depending obviously on what you want. And again, you've got these little track pads that on this side here, which is quite nice. You can scroll through certain things, so media, weather forecast, quite handy, driver information, tyre pressure displays, all that is across there. And then as you see, you can change the actual thing that you're seeing. You can even have it up with the front camera, so you can, as you're driving along, you can actually see what you've got, or you can have it sort of like with the navigation there mirrored across on this side here. Yeah, so absolutely brilliant. And as I say, you can change the dials and stuff to see how you want it. Over here, then obviously again, you've got a similar situation where you've got Hyundai, Genesis, Kia's kind of interface system, which is really good and really slick. I like this a lot. And it can be controlled like the Mercedes in terms of you can either use it as a touchscreen, or you can actually use it with this sort of BMW style iDrive controller here, which I think is even better than the trackpad in the Mercedes. It just feels a bit more natural, and it's got a really nice kind of feel to it. There's a really nice click, or you just, and then you click it how you want it. Phenomenal. Radio controls are here. We saw this earlier. If I turn the car off, that's your transmission lever, this lovely crystal sphere. When you turn that on, it revolves round, and then that's your rotary dial for your transmission. Like that a lot. And then behind it, you've got some ancillary buttons, such as heated and ventilated seats in this car, heated steering wheel, parking controls. There's wireless charging for your mobile, that slots down in there. The only thing I'd say about that is it doesn't seem to hold the phone particularly well, and it's been rattling around when I've been using it. That's the only downside with that. Two big cup holders here. You've also got a big storage bin here. You've got an open cockpit design, so there is a huge amount of space underneath this floating console. Now this moves in the Ioniq 5, as you probably know, and it doesn't move here. It is fixed in position, but that doesn't matter so much because it just works really well. I like it. And there's a good amount of storage. You've got a bin there, you got a big bin down in front there, there's space underneath here. The door bin's a good size. The glove box is a drawer that slides in and out. I like that. Everything so far is so good, and it works really, really well. Physical heating and ventilation controls again, but they are touchscreen for some of them, depending what you want. So the ventilation, the temperature control, and then automatic climate, and whether you want to sync it up, that is on a physical button. But things like the fan speed, that's done via the touch screen. It's okay, it works well, and as I say, it's always on. So yeah, it works fine for me. I don't have a problem with that. The only bit I do, there's two areas of the interior I do have a bit of a problem with. And it's just the kind of liberal use of silver plastic. Now, I know I just criticised Mercedes for using that piano black plastic, but they've kind of gone down the route of Hyundai, and they love a bit of silver paint on their plastic, and I'm not so keen on silver paint on plastic. It just looks a bit cheap, I think. This is quite a nice kind of design here, this kind of checker plate kind of design, that's all right, but it's just some of the buttons, they just don't look quite as good. And just every now and again, you'll touch something which just doesn't feel quite as premium as I think Genesis should be. Like the door handles, they feel particularly cheap. I mean, I don't know why they haven't just fitted a nice piece of metal, you know, a nice bit of chrome door handle would have been really nice there. That's the only, as I say, the only criticism I kind of really have in terms of the kind of visual aspect of it. But as I say, that's a touch point. You know, you open the door with this handle, and as I say, it just feels really cheap and nasty. The second issue I have is this steering wheel. Now, it's a very thick rim steering wheel. It's almost like the old BMW M wheels, where you could almost criticise for being too thick. And this is what we have here. I quite like the two-spoke design, but again, the spokes seem really big and incongruous. And I mean, it's okay to hold, but there's just elements of it just feel a bit too thick. And I'm not so keen on that. And as I say, I think these are a bit big and incongruous, these bits in here. Again, you got all the controls that you want. So, you know, say cruise control and your driver assistance is on here, media and Bluetooth on that side. So there's the right amount of controls on it, but I just think they could have slimmed it down a little bit and made it look less kind of in your face. Drive mode button here, so instead of like Mercedes where you've got the drive mode select here, it's nice and easy within it with your thumb. This is, as I say, the performance model, so this has this big button here that says boost, which is rather nice and fun, so we won't talk about that. Column stocks, nice and easy, so lights, indicators on left, wipers are on right. What else was I about to say? Oh yeah, the paddles behind the steering wheel to adjust your brake regeneration, that's good as well. And as I say, the driving position itself is lovely. It's lovely and comfortable. And as I say, the feeling of space in here is just right. So it's a bit of a difficult call, this one, for me. I have to say, I probably would give the nod to the Genesis in terms of, because I like the design of it and I like the slickness of it, and it feels different. As I say, the use of space is very good, and it does feel like it's kind of moved the game on a little bit. And the dashboard design, like the Mercedes, is just nice and easy to live with and easy to get on with. I like the user interface with the you know, with this rotary dialer here, where I can go into things nice and easy to get to my media or my phone, or you know, or my or navigation. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as usual, are standard anyway. So yeah, I do like it, and the storage is very good. As I say, it's just some use of materials I think need to be a little bit of a notch up, and I'm not so keen on the design of that steering wheel. Other than that, I think this feels a more special place to be than the Mercedes, and that's where I think we'll leave that. Now, when it comes to battery sizes and range, it's the Genesis that takes the prize. It has a 77 kilowatt hour battery, meaning on a single motor car it can deliver a WLTP range of up to 321 miles. And given how efficient that we know Hyundais and Kias have been in the past, it's pretty much a 300-mile car in terms of its range. If you go for a dual motor car like this one, then that range only drops to around about the 270, so again, one of the best in its class. It will also take charging speeds of up to 350 kilowatts, meaning that a 10 to 80% charge from one of those chargers is dispersed in just 18 minutes. But if it's a more likely 50 kilowatt charger you stumble across when you're out and about, then that time goes up to 73 minutes. From your 7 kilowatt wall box, it's overnight at round about 7 hours 40 minutes for a full charge. Now the Mercedes comes with a 66 kilowatt hour battery, so still fairly decent, and it gives a WLTP range of around about 263 miles, but its charging speed is pegged at just 100 kilowatts, meaning that the 10 to 80% charge for the Mercedes is around about half an hour. Charging overnight from your 7 kilowatt wall box, very similar to the Genesis, at just over 7 hours. However, it does have an 11 kilowatt charger as standard on the Mercedes, meaning that if you do have that more faster 3-phase electricity at home with a more powerful wall box, then charging up to full is done in under 6 hours. Now you can have the EQA with more powerful dual motor variants, the 250. And the 300 and the 350, which I think are 226 and 292 horsepower respectively. But it's the 250 that's most sort of like able to stand comparison with the single motor GV60, and that produces 190 brake horsepower going through the front wheels. Now 0 to 60 is a fairly leisurely 9 seconds, but again, you know, they're not massively performance cars, but it does feel a little bit sluggish in comparison with the Genesis. But the caveat, the flip side to that is it has exceptional refinement. It's very nice. It's a very nice place to sit. It's a very nice place to be. It's a very nice car to drive. And what you have is a car that feels like a proper Mercedes-Benz should. Its ride quality is excellent. Now, we spoke about those really quite thick, high sidewalls on the tires during the styling section, and that's where you really feel the benefit now, is this ride quality. It's good. Even though it's an AMG line car, it's not stiffly sprung at all. This is a really comfortable car to be in, allied with that really nice driving position and the good seating. It's lovely to drive, it really is. Now you can change the modes, the driving modes of the car with this dynamic button down here, and you go into, you've got basically 4. You have Eco, and that limits the speed of the car, shuts down various bits and pieces. I mean, obviously it's trying to eke out the last bit of miles. The throttle feels quite dead in that setting, so I'd probably avoid that if I was you. Comfort and sport are the two where I think you would maybe just play around with, but the comfort one is pretty much where I've been using the car in. And as I say, it's just a really nice blend of good response from the controls, adequate enough performance for what the car is, and just a nice feel to the car. You flick it into sport, and yeah, there's a difference. There's a bit of a sharper throttle response. You stamp on the pedal and it scampers away a little bit quicker. It just feels that little bit sharper, you know, in terms of its performance. It's nice. The fourth one is an individual setting, where obviously you can set it all up as your own, you know, with your own mappings and how you want it to be. But I must admit, as I say, comfort is pretty much where I've had the car in. Steering feels good. The steering feel is nice. It's nicely weighted. It has a nice control to it. And then when you're up at sort of like higher speeds on motorways or dual carriageways, it doesn't tend to wander. It's got this nice kind of feel to it. There's a nice kind of meatiness to it that's quite nice. And again, it's that secondary ride where you've got those bigger undulations in road surfaces, where the car just glides over the top of. It's really nice. There's a little bit of wind noise and a little bit of tyre noise, but not so much that you'd ever find it uncomfortable. But it does what you expect a Mercedes-Benz to do. As I say, it's comfortable to drive. There's a little bit of dynamic there when you want it to be. It's quick enough for this type of car in some respects. You start wondering, what more could you want? Now, the brakes are good too, and you've got adjustable regeneration on them via these 2 paddles behind the steering wheel. So you pull the right hand paddle and that takes it off, and then the left hand paddle increases it, and then you can do an automatic setting as well. So you've basically got 2 settings, you've 4 settings. So you've got 2 settings of strong regeneration, and another 2 of better, more coasting, if you like, when you're on a motorway. Or you can flick it into auto, where it will use the front camera, and if you're on the cruise control, to adjust it itself. Very clever and nice and easy to use. I like it a lot. And that's, you know, again, very, very similar to the Hyundai, the Kia and the Genesis, where you've got the paddle control. You don't have to go into the screen to adjust the regeneration. And you've got a little bit more control than you do in some of the other cars where you've just got that B mode. So again, it gives you enough to tinker with for yourself. Is it an exciting car to drive? No, it's not. But is it an easy car to live with? Yes it is. And there's a lot to like about the EQA. And as I say, I think it's probably, when you think of all the EQ models which have been spun off an equivalent combustion engine car, so the EQA, the EQB, the EQV, and the EQC, the way that Mercedes have done it is exceptional, and they don't feel as compromised as maybe you would think they are going to be. They're really, really good at making the electric versions of the piston engine equivalents feel like ground up EVs. And I think that's a real trick, and it's a real credit to Mercedes. And this little EQA is an exceptionally good car. I think it'll be interesting to see BMW when they come out with the iX1, which is obviously going to be a competitor for this car. It'll be interesting to see how well that does drive in comparison, because this is a really good car. I like it. But let's give the Genesis a try. Let's see what we think of that. Now, it'd be very easy to be swayed by this particular car, because as I say, this unfortunately is a dual motor car, which we're using for the actual film. Which produces 483 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. So this is quick. But that's not the car that we're comparing with today. We're talking about the single motor car, which still has a healthy 228 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds. So quicker than the Mercedes, and it's sort of on par with, you know, its siblings from Hyundai with the Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. So it's that sort of area. And obviously cars such as the Ford Mustang Mach-E, you know, extended range car, not the GT, and the single motor Volvo C40 and such. So it's bang on the sort of performance level that most of its main rivals have. How does it feel on the road? It feels really good. It doesn't have, it's got a slightly firmer low speed ride than the Mercedes, which is noticeable. You can really notice the low speed ride being firmer and more sports orientated. Now, as I say, you've got bigger wheels on this car as well, so that there has to be some element of that we have to take into account. But even so, the spring and damper ratings are certainly tuned more towards sports than they are comfort that they are in the Mercedes. But that's not to say that this isn't a really nice car to drive in terms of, you know, how relaxing and quiet that it is. The seats actually feel less sporty than they do in the Mercedes, but they're very comfortable. They hold you in all the right places. This one's got the optional comfort seats fitted, which have a bit more range of adjustment. But even so, I've sat in the car that has the standard seats, and there's not a lot of difference, in fairness. They hold you in the right places. They don't tend to pinch you, and you don't tend to roll around in them quite as much as you might think either. In terms of the driving position, my only criticism is, as I said, this slightly thicker wheel. It just feels like, it's like they've gone down the old BMW M route, where they fit a really thick steering wheel and go, ooh, that's quite sporty. Yeah, not for me, I'm afraid. I think it just, as I say, it's difficult to kind of place your hands in a kind of comfortable place. It's all right. Some people might drive it and go, well, that's fine for me. But personally, I'd quite like a thinner rim with the sort of like the smaller spokes on it as well. But the steering itself is good. The turning's very good. There's a slight vagueness, I would suggest, maybe at the kind of dead ahead. Nothing major, however. But it is an entertaining car to drive. It does feel like it's just a little bit more hunkered down, a little bit more engaging than the Mercedes is. The brake regeneration is very good, as we've come to expect from Hyundai, Kia, and obviously now Genesis. With, like the Mercedes, you have the two paddles behind the steering wheel, where you can go through 3 levels of aggressiveness, or you can go into like an automatic mode. But again, it will use the radar, cruise controls, excuse me, and then obviously brake accordingly. And there's a plethora of driving aids that we've been used to, lane keep assist, you know, as I say, distance guided cruise control, all those type of things, which you can obviously turn off, and I tend to do that. So on the whole, how do we find the Genesis GV60? Well, as the brand's first all-electric car, it drives amazingly well, but I think we kind of expected that in some respects, being based on the eGMP platform that underpins the phenomenally good Ioniq 5 and EV6. But it's more than just that. You know, as I say, the way and the rate at which these companies are bringing about a change to people's perception of the brand, I think is phenomenal. And for a brand that's as unknown as Genesis is, to have come out with a product such as this that can stand head and shoulders next to Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Tesla, and then obviously Hyundai and Kia as partners, is phenomenal. I really like this car. I think they've got a real winner in their hand. I'm trying to decide whether or not I prefer it to the EV6, if I'm honest with you. It's that good. Now, when it comes to pricing, it's a bit difficult because, as I say, the original car we were supposed to have is the single motor premium model, and that starts at £47,000. The press car we were originally intended to have was optioned up to over £56,000, which is quite a lot of money. And as I say, it's that sort of £50,000 bracket where we're seeing a lot of entrants in. But this Mercedes, this EQA 250 AMG line, starts at £46,000, and the car we've got here as tested is £47,500. So whilst Genesis isn't exactly out of touch with the marketplace, because remember things like the Skoda Enyaq, the Kia EV6 and Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ford Mustang Mach-E, they're all around the £50,000 bracket, but believe it or not, it's Mercedes that's kind of leading the way in the value for money stakes. Who'd have thought that? Now, in terms of competition for these two, well, you throw a stick into the car park and you're probably going to hit an all-electric, sporty, compact, premium crossover slash SUV at round about £50,000. There is a huge amount of choice out there for you as a buyer. Skoda's Enyaq, both as its standard car and now sportier looking coupe, is available round about that. You've got obviously Volkswagen's ID4 and ID5 twins, Audi's Q4 e-tron. BMW are about to enter the fray with the new iX1, and as we've also mentioned, things like the Ford Mustang Mach-E. And don't forget, of course, there's also Volvo's single motor versions of the C40 and XC40, both of which are excellent cars to drive. So there is plenty of competition out there. But of course, it's Genesis that has to face the toughest task, because it's going up against its own family with things like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and of course our favourite, the Kia EV6. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the Genesis GV60. We like its styling, its range and efficiency, its charging capability, the dynamics and the technology on offer. We don't like the low-speed ride is a little firm. Some of the interior plastics in the interior are still below class best, and some areas of the interior design are still a little questionable. And also the price can creep up with some of the options fitted. And here's what we like and we don't like about the Mercedes-Benz EQA 250. We like its refinement, the standard equipment, its price, its build quality and its comfortable interior. We don't like its boot is very small, the lack of rear seat space. Some may say the styling is a little reserved. The range lags the Genesis, and there's a lack of battery options available. The world has changed somewhat since I was a wee boy, thankfully. Because remember what I said right at the beginning, the Mercedes-Benz used to be the preserve of the privileged few, just in the same way that a Korean car used to be a little bit cheap and cheerful. And yet here we have this brand new, unheard of brand challenging one of Stuttgart's absolute finest. But the interesting thing is, younger buyers looking at the EV market nowadays are less swayed by pedigree and breeding and more so by technology and design and ease of use and usability. And that is where Genesis is going to stand very well. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that Mercedes-Benz probably will still sell more EQAs than Genesis will GV60s. But does that make it a better car? Well, don't confuse popularity with superiority, because in my opinion, the GV60 is more interesting to look at, better to drive, and okay, yes, it doesn't offer the exact same value for money that Mercedes-Benz does, but it's good enough to stand comparison with it. And so for me, it's the Genesis that takes the win. Don't get me wrong, I still think the EQA is a phenomenally good car. It's just that the Genesis is better. Thank you once again for watching another episode of AutoEV. As always, please remember, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and after you've done that, press the little bell button down below to make sure you're notified of when our next video goes live. If you've enjoyed watching it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave us some comments, good or bad. Remember, we're also on all social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Go and give us a follow there as well if you don't mind, because every little bit helps us. And if this is just a part of your day and you think to yourself, oh, I need to have much more of a silly old Scotsman talking about electric cars, then stay on our YouTube channel and delve through our back catalogues, where you'll see all the latest road test reviews of all the new EVs on the market, our electric icon series and twin tests as well. Thank you once again for watching. I'll see you again soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.